Hi, I am back today to do my book talk on my fantasy novel using the Frye Circle model. The Frye Circle model is not something I'd heard of before, so at first I was a little perplexed trying to figure out, okay, how do I fit my novel into this? I don't understand all these components, and so I think I was just um, making it more difficult than it probably had to be because in the end it actually wasn't that difficult to do once I got started. So the book I chose to do my Frye Circle over, the fantasy novel, is Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children. And Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children, in my opinion, was an amazing novel. I thought it was really unique and different than what I have read in the past, and it had so many themes and twists and characters that had their own story um, that really made it one made me want to keep reading. And in fact, I'm on the second book now, reading the second one because I want to continue on in the series. Another part that I loved about the book was the fact that the author uses photography and historical photos that he has come across and found to really um, highlight the story and the things going on. So these are real photographs from history that have been taken over the years of just different things and different places, and they even come from some of the what do you call them? The sideshows, I guess, where they had the bearded lady and those types of things. And so some of those photographs have come from places like that and collectors of that type of art, as well as other places that he's found and added to his own personal collection. So that added just a little piece of interest and intrigue, I guess, to the novel that I think kids would really pick up on. It's not your typical illustrated book, but it's interesting to see how he's paired those real-time photographs with the story that he's telling. So again, Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children by Ransom Riggs. And this is my Frye Circle. So I'm going to actually just read the first paragraph to you to kind of start my Frye Circle and explain why I came up with those first two words in the center, before and after. And that came right from the very first paragraph to the prologue in this book. And it's just a short little paragraph. It says, I had just come to accept that my life would be ordinary when extraordinary things began to happen. The first of these came as a terrible shock, and, like anything that changes you forever, split my life into halves, before and after. Like many of the extraordinary things to come, it involved my grandfather, Abraham Portman. And so that's how the book opens, and I thought that was really interesting, that piece of foreshadowing there that kind of hooks you from the very beginning as a reader. And so that's actually how I chose to split my Frye Circle into the before and after. So our story, or the story I read, follows a character by the name of Jacob, and it also talks a lot about his grandpa Abe. Um, in the beginning, in what I call the fall, I guess, we see Jacob is living at home in a small town USA type setting with his mom and dad, and he works for them in the store they own. But he's got this grandpa that he has a very close relationship with, and this grandpa has told these amazing stories throughout his childhood, but his grandpa's getting to a point where he considers him to becoming more delirious and more a danger to himself and others. And unfortunately, after a mysterious phone call, Jake finds his grandfather dying or dead in the woods outside his home. But the circumstances of his death are very mysterious. It almost looks like a wild animal has attacked him, but Jacob is sure that he has seen something in these woods. And because of that instance, it has a huge impact on Jacob. Jacob starts to become more withdrawn. And he also is in this place where he's just searching for answers, I think, of any kind, searching for himself, trying to understand himself and his place in the world. He's kind of an outsider, a loner, somebody that doesn't have a ton of friends, and isn't really sure where he's headed or what he's going to do with his life. And so that's kind of still happening in the before and the winter. He's really seeking. He's seeking a lot of things. He's seeking answers to his grandfather's death, and he's seeking answers to why he thinks he saw these things in the forest, and who he is, and how he fits in with this family that he has, and his mother and father who are busy working and things like that. And that is when a psychiatrist actually recommends to the family that Jacob travel to this Carnholm Island in Wales, which is actually the island that his grandfather claimed all these stories that he told him in his past happened. These stories that when he was a teenager, like Jacob, he was living in this orphanage during World War II, and he lived with all these strange children that had all these peculiar habits, like floating and being able to control fire and having bees that live inside them and he can control these bees. And so Jacob's father decides to take him to this island on this trip, and that's kind of when we enter spring. Within the first couple of days of his trip, Jacob actually stumbles upon this orphanage that's pretty much been destroyed over the years and is in ruins. But in the midst of doing that, he somehow stumbles into what is called a time loop. And in that time loop, he is able to go back in time to, excuse me, he's going back in time to 1940. So we see on the bottom half, this is the present day, and then the top half is 1940. So he stumbles into this time loop, but what's really interesting is he has the power to go in and out of this time loop. So we see him bounce back from present day with his father in dealing with things like that back to the 1940s in this island and this orphanage of all these children that are living there. And what's happening in this time loop is these children are living there and they know that they're repeating the same day over and over, the day before the bombs come and destroy their home. And the home is led by Miss Peregrine, and she kind of controls this time loop and allows them to live peacefully and safe from the one of or in the book, which are the whites or the hologasts, and these are the creatures that are believed to have killed his grandpa Abe. And these creatures are ones that hunt these peculiar children because they're searching for endless youth. They want to stay young endlessly, and in their quest, they're having to go through and collect these children. And so in the spring, we see that Jacob's really getting to know Emma, who actually was a love interest of his grandpa's when he was there. And it's interesting to see their relationship develop and how they kind of start to have romantic feelings for each other as well. And then also, as we move into the summer, we really see where Jacob is starting to befriend these peculiar children and starting to feel like one of them. And in fact, he learns about his own abilities and about his grandpa and himself. And he's starting to find himself and find answers. And that's where he's torn. And so that's where I'm going to let you read the book to find out where Jacob decides to be. Does he find himself in the past in the 1940s, or does he end up going back to present day and living with his dad and going back to the United States? So that is where I'm going to leave you. If you haven't read this book, I definitely recommend picking it up. I haven't seen the movie, but I've heard the book is way better than the movie. So I'll leave you with that thought.